you know who we're bringing in here. Our guy Brad Powers down there in sunny Las Vegas. Brad, how you making out?
Doing well. Thanks for having me as always.
Yes, sir. So two different picks to get into here for a couple spots to jump on early. But before we get into that, any big takeaways from this past weekend that bettors should consider going forward?
I think the biggest takeaway is, it continues to be the most wide open national title picture that we've seen in college football in the last 15 years. And that's not, being a hot take there. It's just that's legitimate. Whether you look at a power rating, whether you look at performance, you name it. You got a Georgia team, the two-time defending champs, struggling with the average SEC teams. So whether it's South Carolina or last week against Auburn, slow starts, down 10-0. I'm here to tell you, they get off the slow starts against better competition. Forget covering the spread. They're going to lose these games outright. So a very intriguing matchup this week against Kentucky, who was super impressive against Florida last week. Certainly surprised me, to say the least, that they dominated that game from start to finish. And then obviously we're going to talk about this game on Thursday's show, but one of the bigger games of the year so far, Texas-Oklahoma, to a battle of unbeatens. Oklahoma's covered the spread in every game so far this season, even though it's been against weak competition. They've been super impressive. So kind of the eye towards this weekend more than last weekend. We didn't have a lot of super matchups, although I'll say Notre Dame saved their season in the final minute there against Duke. That season really could have went sideways had they lost that game against the Blue Devils.
Yeah, so you touch on Georgia there, and certainly a little underwhelming maybe as the favorite this season. Not in the news a whole lot. Maybe that has to do with Colorado and all these big time quarterbacks stealing the headlines. But take a look at Georgia. Do you think they're deserving of being the favorite to win the national championship, or do you think a lot of that's based on what they've done the past couple seasons?
That's a good question, Joe. Yeah, they deserve to be the favorite. Mainly schedule dependent. They're going to be a significant favorite in all their remaining games. If we're just talking body of work, if I'm talking like an AP poll voter, I'm not sure I'd have number one. I think there's probably some more deserving teams. In fact, if Texas were to go out and beat Oklahoma, if I was an AP poll voter, I would vote Texas number one because it wins over Oklahoma and then on the road against Alabama. But yeah, the pathway, their toughest game is going to be this week against Kentucky, more than a 2-touchdown favorite, on the road against Tennessee, where they'll be more than a touchdown road favorite. So their pathway still leads them to deserve to have the shortest national title odds.
Okay, let's get into a couple of plays here, Brad. Let's start with Thursday night college football action. We have Louisiana Tech is taking on Western Kentucky. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, I like the home underdog here. Louisiana Tech plus the 5.5. I made the line 4. So we always go to the power rating first and foremost. And mainly it's a play against Western Kentucky, who I think is one of the more overrated teams in the entire country. They sit here with a 3-2 record. But I'm here to tell you, they were very underwhelming. The scoreboard says one thing. The box score says another in 4 of their 5 games. Statistically, number 122 in the country, yards per game differential. Statistically, number 108 in the country in yards per play differential. This is a team that has the stats of a team that's 1-4, 2-3 instead of a team with a winning record. So they go on the road, and I think they get, provided they don't get much turnover luck like they've had in a lot of their games this year, I think they get exposed a little bit against the Louisiana Tech team.
Okay, next up, we have Fresno State, Wyoming, a 5.5-point spread. What side are you on in this one?
So let me talk big picture real quick here before I get into this individual game. You can see that I have 2 games that I picked that have 5.5-point spreads. There's a reason behind that. We're early in the week. 5 is a very dead number in football. You got to anticipate market moves at this time of the week. So we're going to not only say value here, but also anticipating that we're going to get some closing line value because we're sitting on dead numbers, and it's not likely that these games are going to finish the week at 5.5. In this particular matchup with Fresno State, I'm not wild about the road laying a lot of road favorites, but in this case, I am. We're going to lay 5.5 with Fresno State, a team that's off a couple of tomato cans. Are sitting here unbeaten. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, sneaky spot at Wyoming, look out." For the most part, I agree with that, but Fresno State's used to playing in Wyoming. It's not like a Texas Tech or an Appalachian State playing in Laramie for the first time in forever. The 2 teams that Wyoming pulled the outright upset earlier this season. And let's talk quickly about those games. Another couple phony finals for Wyoming. Texas Tech. Not saying that Wyoming didn't deserve to cover the game, but Texas Tech missed 3 field goals in the game. Probably Texas Tech should have won the game in regulation. And on top of that, a couple weeks ago, App State, Wyoming wins the game. Probably didn't deserve to win the game. App State's lining up for a field goal in the final 2 minutes to seal the game. Wyoming blocks it and returns it for a touchdown. The first blocked field goal return for a touchdown in the history of Wyoming football allows them to escape with a 3-point win in that one. So you look at Wyoming statistically, outgained by 60 yards per game on the season. That is a team that should be 2-3, not 4-1. So because of that, I think we have some value. And I'm not a big guy in series history, but my goodness, I don't see a pathway for much success here against Wyoming. I don't think that they really match up well against Fresno State. And if you don't believe me, the last 2 years these two teams have played, cumulative score: Fresno State 47, Wyoming 0. We're going to lay the 5.5 here with Fresno State.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That looks like a good spot. So one last question here. The past couple times you've been on, we've been getting some betting advice from you. Now, a lot of sharper sports bettors, they completely advise against doing teasers in college football. I like doing them in the NFL, but people just advise doing them in college. What's your stance on teasing college football games?
It is one of the biggest no-nos there is. Do not tease college football ever. There's only one time where I would say it's okay to tease college football, and it's one particular game every year, the Army-Navy game, because it's such a suppressed scoring, low total. There's not a lot of variance. The teams know each other. It's not like all of a sudden Navy wins the game 42-0 out of nowhere. That is the only game I would ever considering teasing because of a supremely low total and usually a point spread that's sitting at touchdown or less. So don't tease college football. Just don't do it. Love NFL teasers when I can get the right price, the long teasers. But, man, in college football, there's just way too much variance to be profitable long term.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So I will avoid doing that. And we recommend you avoid doing that as well. So we thank Brad for joining us. Brad will be right back with us here on Thursday's edition of Before You Bet, where we take a look at the biggest games of the weekend. Brad, thank you for joining us, and good luck with your research.